What's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and welcome to the channel. Here we're going to be talking about Planetside 2, which is a game that I have been championing so much over especially this past year, where it had a big surge of players. There was all this sort of new content, and a lot of people were just having a lot of fun. Content creators showing off the game, and I actually did the Adventure Game Party Club where we jumped in all together, squatted up, and we laser blasted people's faces off. It was freaking awesome. So this is going to be my top 10 reasons to play Planetside 2. Definitely consider it my review, but I'd like to thank today's sponsor, which is Vankyo's Leisure Projector, which is incredibly affordable at $230, at least right now on Amazon. Links in the description. And as well, you can actually go into my Instagram, just like this and comment this picture, and then, hey, maybe I'll give one away to you because I actually got an extra. This I've been using to play Planetside 2, and also watch a little bit of, if you like sci-fi, The Expanse. Freaking sweet. But hey, if you're gonna play like an MMO and it can use a controller, why did not just use the most massive screen? But yeah, I mean, something like this projector, I mean, it's set up super easy. I just set it up beside me because it's actually got a horizontal keystone, which is pretty unique. And then yeah, free Wi-Fi setup with your phone and stuff like that. Just mirror the screen of whatever you're using. Boom, I'm sitting there playing Planetside. It's epic. So this is really just a reminder. No matter how you consume your content, just treat yourself. But this is gonna be 10 bullet points of objectively what makes this a unique and great, like what it does the best in the MMO genre. This video is definitely in thanks to those who support me on Patreon. Much love, friends and family. But if you guys want to play with me, join the Discord in the description below. Let's jump to Planetside 2. It's my late night and chill, blast people's faces off kind of game. But if you want to know why I play it, here we go, my top 10 reasons. Alright, so first off, super easy, so clean, just obvious. It's totally free. It's a game that just immediately, you click start, you click a class, you're in it. It's an MMO. There's hundreds of people from faction. It's freaking ridiculous, and it's free. All the classes are playable immediately. Now, there are unlocks, and there are microtransactions, there's cosmetics, there are things like scopes, and, maybe you can add C4, or change the way your jets work, or have perm invisibility. Sure, but in the end, most of the game is really easy to progress to a point of, I guess you could say, competitiveness. Debatably, most people who play Planetside 2 say, like, the starter equipment is actually, like, the best, but it's for the most part horizontal progression. It's just customization and new and different ways to play, but immediately already comparing it to maybe somewhat similar games, no, man, this game, you just hit the ground running, totally free, and I haven't seen another game that just so immediately is so free and so accessible. Now, there's probably some debate over how pay to win it could potentially be, how competitive it might be, or how much grind there is to unlock everything in the game. I don't know, but as a free player, I very much doubt you can complain. You're jumping in, hundreds of people around you, you can pick whatever role and class you want to play, and then from there, you actually do have the freedom, as a free-to-play player, to unlock everything in the game. And I kind of don't really want to say this, but at the same time, it's kind of true, but the progression and the unlocking does feel really rewarding, and as you get good at this game, because there is a skill ceiling, as you begin to progress and learn how to progress very quickly, then you actually really kind of feel it in game, and I really like that. So unlocking is something that it's fun to look forward to. Just like, I don't know, maybe in a MOBA or something, you get a new character, you get a new way to play. It's cool, it's fine, but in the end, even at the beginning, it's still fair, and you're still able to play really the full game. You have the full experience instantaneously. Really no freemium experience here. It's just you download, it's free, you play, and then there's some grind, and that's it. Or you can support the game, buy some cosmetics, or progress a little bit quicker. Next up, I just have the bullet point of it's cheesy sci-fi, and basically what I mean by that is how many MMO games are actually sci-fi, right? And so we kind of have like a big one, which is EVE Online, and that plays a very peculiar kind of way. And then its art style is kind of more serious, maybe more sincere. Planetside 2 is kind of like Starship Troopers. It's like that 90s action flick cheese. That's all the way through the score, the music, the guitars or the synth, depending on the faction that you're playing. And just like the superhero looking uniforms or what have you. It's cheesy sci-fi. So it's not anime. It is not medieval, European fantasy. It's not low or high it's sci-fi. And then at that, it's cheesy sci-fi. I think there is reasons why you might want to play certain games. Definitely, a lot of people play games specifically because of their art style, because of their aesthetic, but this is the sci-fi MMO in my opinion. I know a lot of people, hey, EVE Online, I get it, but action, lasers, freaking, you know, flying ships and tanks and explosions and in real time, like, oh my god. Okay, so the cheese factor also is doubly there, not just with the music, but the audio of, like, the voices, the yells, the screaming, it's so ridiculous. I don't know. It just genuinely has an environment that's just, it's not that serious, guys. Just jump in and have some fun. And the whole game oozes that. And I get it, a lot of people love pure immersion and they really love, like, that fantasy and elves and roleplay. Planetside 2 is not that game. And I think, in a lot of ways, why that's a deterrent. The same, you know, double-edged sword, it's also why I play it. It definitely pairs very well in my MMO diet. You know, so that it kind of separates itself just a little bit. So I definitely implore, give it a little bit of a shot. If you're a fan of, you know, old sci-fi or just sci-fi in general, I think you're gonna have fun with Planetside 2. They definitely have fun with the aesthetic itself, with the audio, and definitely with the mechanics, you know, from like the shields and the vehicles, the weird types of grenades, and all the different classes as well. Like the drifter jets, like what the fuck? There's so much weird stuff in Planetside 2 that makes it feel and obviously look very different from other MMOs. Next reason why you should play Planetside 2 is kind of because, like, it's so easy. It's just so easy to jump into Planetside 2. It was my #1 in the list video that I did recently of MMO that you can just jump in and jump out. Yeah, this is the easiest MMO to jump into. It downloads incredibly quickly, and yeah, it is kind of a more intensive game. You do need like an intense, or I guess a general gaming PC. I get it, but you hit download, you click play, you are more instantaneously in the MMO experience faster than literally any other MMO. I'm talking even like IO game style stuff, like Realm of the Mad Gods pretty up there too, like Guild Wars 2 is really up there. You could just immediately be fighting a world boss in like minutes. No, in Planetside 2, you click play, you click spawn, it is freaking bonkers, okay? So, and it's a first-person shooter, so it's really intuitive. Generally, because of the aesthetic and everything, it's like, okay, you know, I've played Halo before, I get sci-fi, all right, there's tanks, and, you know, there's the airplane or whatever, there's a four-wheeler. It's very intuitive. It's very understandable. At the same time, though, I get it. You know, it's chaotic, it's ridiculous, but as long as you understand that it is just an intense bullfuckery, you know, then yeah, it's gonna be a great time. But yeah, I think objectively, unless some other new MMO comes out that's very inspired by like Realm of the Mad God, or maybe like I would totally play, like I would play a fantasy Planetside 2. But otherwise, until that happens, for the most part, for realsies, Planetside 2 is objectively the easiest MMO. I think, especially if you're brand new to MMOs, you're bringing in a friend to play a game, instantaneously, you guys are in to the fray. Almost no other MMO can even begin to compete with that speed, with that ease of access. Alright, next reason why you should play Planetside 2 is that it never stops. That's what I got. The bullet point says never stops. And what, oh man, I can extrapolate from that forever, basically. But in so many ways, like, it's easy to jump into, because it's always easy to jump into, and it's free, and, you know, it's an FPS. It's just, people are always fighting over different bases, different territories. The way the game is kind of designed is that there is a specific time, like every hour, you basically have a continent or a map that's being fought over, and that can be won by one of the factions. And then there's like a little pause period, and then it switches maps, and then you go and do that. But it's basically like it's always on, it's always happening, even if the player counts can actually dip down just a little bit because of the instant deploy system. You know, again, it's so easy to jump into. There's always players jumping in, always into the action, even though the maps can be so large, and in many other games like Battlefield, servers can feel very empty. Planetside 2 is just always happening. It never stops. It never gives up. And of course, there's always something to work towards with that horizontal progression because of its free-to-play monetization. There's always something to master mechanically, and of course, there's always fights. And what's awesome is that they're always in different areas, different bases, and of course, even entirely different maps. And you're just gonna have always a new experience with Planetside 2. This is why it's my late night and chill game, because it's just so cool to come into it. And yeah, I know it's kind of weird to chill in a game that's so chaotic and action-packed, but it just never stops. It's just always something that I can just casually jump into, be like, oh yeah, I just kind of feel like fighting hundreds of people, you know, why not? So if you're kind of into that and you just always want a game that can always be a cool backup game, which I know a lot of guys, it's for Apex, you know, maybe it's Overwatch, maybe it's League of Legends, you can just always go in and find a match, I get it. But for the MMO experience, you cannot get that anywhere else. You're not going to be able to just match make into a bunch of games or do world versus world like in Elder Scrolls or Guild Wars 2. That's not going to happen. Planetside 2 is the game that is just, it's always just there. It's just waiting for you. Come on, friend. Let's have some fun. Let's jump out of an airship and throw C4 on some tanks or something. I don't know. Okay, so moving through the list, it's an MMO FPS. I mean, this is a real quick point, but it's just, in terms of uniquity, right? There's not other MMO FPS. I mean, there are other MMO that are first-person shooters. Like, you could say Darkfall. You could even debate Elder Scrolls Online. I get it, kind of. And I think there, like, might be, like, a World War shooter MMO that, like, nobody plays. But in terms of, like, actual MMO content that's, like, genuinely good and, like, actually has real FPS mechanics that feel good. It's not just horribly janky and awkward. It's the only one. It's actually award-winning, too. For when it comes to, like, I guess the world records of epicosity. So yeah, MMO FPS. That's pretty much it. That's all I got to say. I'm not going to ramble too much about it. This is the only MMO FPS. If you guys can find others, list it below, and if it at all competes, just be honest. Like, for real. Planetside 2 is the MMO FPS, and I do think we need others. I do think that there is a hunger for people to play, you know, something like this. Maybe it could be a different theme. Maybe it could be anime or fantasy. I don't know. But until then, Planetside 2 is not just the only MMO FPS, but it's pretty freaking decent, and I'm really stretching my imagination to find something that could easily just topple this, and that's probably why we haven't seen that anywhere close at all. And do keep in mind that this isn't just general FPS gameplay, it's mixed combat with different vehicles, a crazy variety of different classes. It's pretty ridiculous, and it's pretty supple in its FPS-dom as well as its MMO aspects. Okay, we're halfway through now. Let's talk about flying. Flying is a pretty rare occurrence in a lot of MMOs, and sometimes you might have it where it's like, okay, it's World of Warcraft, you can fly and you kind of move around. It's for the most part a gimmick. You don't really, it's not combat, it's not a main premise, but flying in Planetside 2, if you ever played Battlefield, you probably know what I'm about to say, but it is a true holy shit moment when you actually fly for the first time. You're probably going to crash. You're going to realize, oh, there's a skill floor to this. And then as you start to learn, you're going to have multiple other moments where you're like, oh, there's a skill ceiling to this. And there's very few games that have given me this sensation. I think maybe the first time I ever played Quake, first time I ever played Tribes, and maybe with a certain couple characters in Overwatch, where it's just like there's such a skill ceiling and such a unique way of controlling this thing that it just genuinely, I don't know, it makes me feel enlightened. Planetside 2 is going to give you that, with such complexity, with the MMO aspects, the logistics of where you should fly, how you should fly, move, and just purely maneuvering in a 3D space. So yeah, you can kind of get this in Battlefield, but obviously taken to exponentially, you know, to crazy heights, pun, with Planetside 2 because it's an MMO. So flying's really fun, especially because of, you know, there's a couple of different ships and how you fly them. You can go solo, dogfight. You can actually have people, you know, manning the turrets and stuff. You can have like a drop ship party. You go over a base, everyone jumps down. I don't know, throwing grenades or stealth missioning in. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of fun maneuvers that you can do, but just purely in its simplest form, flying. You're not going to get this in another MMO. And then, of course, extrapolating that to the MMO aspects of Planetside 2, holy shit. Like, there might have been like one or two, like, what is it, Riders of Icarus, and I think Dragon's Prophet, that had like dragon dogfighting kind of in their game. Nah, Planetside 2 is going to blow all flying out of the water for, frankly, most games, even considering like non-MMOs like Battlefield 2. It's very comparable, but yeah, no, if you want to fly and you want to be known as like somebody with a unique skill set in a game, Planetside 2, if you are a pilot, you are literally called a sky god inside of this game. So if that excites you, hell yeah, this is the game to play. Alright, the number 4 reason to play Planetside 2 is that it has instant class switching. This is something that I wish more MMOs had, and I know you could probably be like, well, Final Fantasy XIV, you can switch classes, you just have to re-level it. That's awkward. And you could say like, oh, Guild Wars 2, you could just freely make whatever class you want for the most part. Okay, kind of, but it's not the same as just being in a match. You know, being in the world versus world and just being like, oh, we need a medic. I will switch to the medic. Oh, we need an engineer or something, or we need more defense. We need tanks and things like that, or we need somebody to flank, etc. Planetside 2, you can immediately do that, and that is such a boon when it comes to even if you're not talking with people, which I do recommend inside of Planetside 2. Great way to make friends. It's just, it creates so much opportunity for social interaction instead of just being like, I'm a paladin, I just gotta run it down and do this, you know, in the battleground or whatever. This is my role. I don't have to interact with anybody at all. In this way, allowing players to class switch or role switch and you know, all the customization that follows with that, you're able to really tailor your gameplay and have a much wider breadth of different types of gameplay and experiences because you're reading the situation of, okay, what do we need or what do I want to do in this situation? Do I want to flank? Do I want to go invisible? Do I want to jump over the walls? Do I want to just heal my teammates? Do we need somebody to go into a max suit and tank it up? What can I do? What are the possibilities? What are the potentials? And Planetside 2 is like the only game that really lets you do that. Every other game is all about just tremendous grind, tremendous like class fantasy kind of, but even then, Planetside 2 I think actually does it better and just lets you fantasize and play these different power fantasies instantaneously. But there's always this idea of like, okay, your character is who you are, you have to role play, and you have to work for it, you have to work for this and that. But Planetside 2 is just like, nah, just switch whatever class you want. And it is just so amazing because it's such a mechanical game, so you really get a feeling of all these different weapons, all these different ways of playing, and you do get an appreciation for how other people's play. I think there's a lot of games, especially Holy Trinity games, where tanks are always mad at healers, healers are always mad at DPS, and DPS are always mad at tanks, but it's harder to gain appreciation when you can't just go and do that thing because you're basically hard stuck and hard locked to the class that you picked and the role that you're picking. It's really cool when games let you instant switch. Basically none do that are actually MMOs. Planetside 2 is the one that does it. And with all its other uniquities, oh, it just really all comes together. You really feel it. So yeah, if you want to play a game that just has a lot to offer in terms of variety, that's Planetside 2. Give it a shot. Now, number 3, I do actually just have class customization. That's it. I think I've kind of already hinted and teased at it a little bit. It really is high up, even though I don't have much more to say about it because it's just good. Now, I know I've already said it's fair, and with the class switching, it's really cool to progress and try different builds and things like that, but class customization is really just fun in Planetside 2. I think it's really not that grindy. I think it's pretty easy to do, but just to kind of give some examples, which I've already given in this video, is you can actually play a sniper infiltrator, which you can have stealth, but for the most part, you're going to be using your sniper rifle and trying to pick off other players with headshots, or you can actually be more of a run and gun infiltrator, which maybe can feel maybe a little bit like modern Call of Duties, sort of, a little, maybe like Halo or something like that. Or you could be an infiltrator that is full invisible all the time and just goes melee only. And so you can actually play kind of a little bit more supportish, more scoutish. You can play a little bit more, obviously, infiltraty, and you can be, you can actually go and flank, or you can just be berserk. You can actually be boots on the ground and running and gunning. So that's just one class. You can be a battle medic, obviously, or an engineer that's just totally focused on healing and just kind of getting points like that. Working on, you could play with the vehicles, or you can actually customize and play in such a way so that you are, again, more run and gun, or maybe focused on using rockets or something like that. So I really do like the class customization. I think that there's already a good amount of the classes. So yeah, bonus points also for the instant switching, right? But even in between those, like the different light assaults, you know, just the simple fact of, okay, these jet boosters go more vertical, or the drift ones, which allow you to strafe in the air, totally change how the class actually feels. And that's a big thing. You can look at a lot of the games, you can look at a lot of MMOs from World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, I don't know, whatever, Guild Wars, sure, and you have customization. And you can change things. You change colors, you change your rotation, maybe you change the type of damage you do, but how often does the feel actually really change? Not often. It's pretty specific, and it's pretty rare overall. So with Planetside 2, even though you can look at the customization and be like, oh, you can change the weapon a little bit, oh, you can change the type of jet or fucking whatever, oh, you could change the type of invisibility, you're still going invisible. No, the way you actually play in Planetside 2, because it is an action combat game, it is an FPS, full 3D, vehicles, and you're infiltrating different bases and terrains and all these different classes and how they interact with all their different customizations, it will genuinely feel more impactful than other games. So the number of customizations is good, and then each one that you actually do choose and pick around and play with genuinely makes a big difference, much more than even non-MMOs, in my opinion. So definitely a big point to not take lightly. Number 2, already kind of said it with the totally free thing, but it's fair. The game is pretty fair. It's also kind of fair because it's not fair. Like, it's just so bonkers, it's so chaotic. There's gonna be times where you're just gonna lose because maybe not that many people in your faction are online or something like that. But in the end, it's just a game that you don't really... I don't think there's really too much stress. I don't think there's really too much worry. I know it's such a chaotic and bombastic game, but as I said earlier, this is my late night and chill game because it's just not like hyper competitive like League of Legends or especially Dota, where it's like, oh, we forgot to ban that champion and now, you know, that's gonna just completely destroy us. The whole game is lost now. It's not like that, you know. It's still just fun to jump. Even if you're losing, it's still just kind of fun to jump in, and you can still just wreak havoc, you know? You can still just do ridiculous things and have epic, like, stories to tell your friends when you go to school the next day or something like that. Like, oh yeah, I jumped out of a ship, dropped C4, I got like 10 kills instantaneously, pulled out the shotgun, was drift jetting, headshot, it was crazy, man. You should have been there. Yeah, and those are the kind of things that get people to play the game. Oh man, it's just genuinely overall, I think is a fair game. And you really can't say that to, I think, a lot of MMOs. A lot of MMOs have all the structure, and they have all these, like, obligations as a player, and there's a lot of stress, and yet at the same time, they're completely imbalanced anyways. So that creates so much frustration and friction with players. But in the end, Planetside 2 is like, yeah, it's bonkers, you know? But hey, it's free to play. Anybody can just, you know, get whatever they want, pretty much. You can play whatever class you want. And so this is kind of almost like every other point that I've mentioned, kind of all put into one. It's just fair. It's just fun. It's not that stressful. And yeah, it can be ridiculous. The numbers are pretty intense, and it's a very different type of game to play, for sure. To kind of really comprehend and be like a really good player. But in the same time, it's fair. You know, the time you put into it, you will get better. You will do some amazing things. There will be amazing feats. And sometimes it'll feel unfair. There's going to be 100 people, and it's going to be versus like 2 of you. Yeah, but in the same time, it's like, it's kind of fair because it's always unfair. There's always chaos. And if you can live in that, then you're going to have so much fun. You will love it. You just have to understand the special brand of that. But I think that's what makes MMOs unique. I will just end this bullet point by saying that. MMOs should be free. It should be ridiculous, and there shouldn't be these weird constraints and arbitrary balance decisions and things like that. That in the end, MMOs are they're kind of just a bit much anyways. Developers always just fuck it up anyways. So Planetside 2 is it's a game that can never be balanced, and yet because it was designed with that in mind, it actually is very fair. Even as a brand new free-to-play player, like I already said, it's totally free. It is a fair experience. You will be able to play the full breadth of the game. You can do what anybody else can do instantaneously, and you have a shot at winning. You know, as long as you're all in it together and you believe in each other, and as long as you pick Vanu, then yeah, it's gonna be a fair, good time, and you're gonna win. You're gonna do these good stuff. It's gonna be good. Okay. All right, but finally, really the last reason, and this was the very first one that I actually put on my little list here. Top 10 reasons to play Planetside 2. The number 1 reason is because it's epic. It's epic. That's why you play MMOs. You play MMOs for the epicosity. And Planetside 2 is the objectively most epic MMO. How do I know that? Because Guinness World Records, it actually has had the most amount of players, and there is a gimmick to this. Technically in an action combat 3D MMO, because technically EVE Online actually had more players in a single combat situation, by far, to be honest, but EVE Online isn't like a real-time action combat game. So in terms of most massive action MMO, objectively, and this is what makes Planetside 2 and beats out every other MMO, it is the most epic. And then tie in every other thing that I've already mentioned. It's epic. Most players on a screen in real time. In a 3D space, people are flying, there's tanks, rockets, laser beams, invisible people stabbing you in the butthole. You know, it's cheesy, it's sci-fi. Everyone can just jump in, jump out whenever they want. It never stops. FPS action that it comes in so many different flavors that you can instantly try out for yourself, and it is totally free. All of this comes together, and of course just allowing for this just to exist. A big ass map, big ass bases, and a lot of players, 3 different factions, all fighting each other in some ridiculous dumb battle royale. You're just not gonna get this feeling from any other game, period. So yeah, absolutely, for the #1 reason why you should play Planetside 2 is because literally no other game has this many players on the screen in an action combat scenario. Now, there might be some game, you could say, hey, there's a clip of World of Warcraft and it's like 2 FPS and people are raiding Stormwind, whatever. You can look at Guild Wars 2 World vs. World, look at this Zerg, they're zerging and they're going through a castle and they're just running over everyone. Yeah. Elder Scrolls Online, you could say, oh man, there's these epic sieges. You know, in the end, the most amount of players with the most amount of action combat that's clean, that's really driven by proper player agency and not weird magical, MMO mechanics. It's just genuine good epicosity. That's Planetside 2. So guys, that's my top 10 reasons play Planetside 2. So play Planetside 2 because I'm right about everything all the time, but this is a game that I love, and comparing it, this is a list obviously directly comparing it to other MMOs. This isn't just reasons to play Planetside 2. This is reasons to play Planetside 2 over all other MMOs. Directly what makes it uniquely the best, objectively the most interesting, massively multiplayer online FPS out there. So that was pretty much it. I probably could add some more, but obviously top 10. Gotta give the top reasons. What do you guys think? Why you should play Planetside 2, or maybe why you stopped playing Planetside 2? Continue the review, continue the dialogue in the comments below. Absolutely. But I do want to give another shout out. Thank you so much for the Patreons who actually, support this channel, who allow me to dive into these games and give me some time and, obviously the funding so that I can make these events where we go and play and have all the fun together and we collaborate and we review together. So that's pretty much it, guys. I had a lot of fun. I'm definitely giddy and I feel like a kid all over again talking about this game. And I think that's another point that just makes it special. Putting all the points together, all 10 reasons, it just makes you feel happy. It's a good, cheesy game that does some cool, unique things that other games don't give you. So if you play games to make memories and have unique experiences, Planetside 2 is a must try. And if you've already played it, get your friends to play it. And if you haven't played it in a bit, jump back in. And join me in the Discord, or catch my streams, like subscribe to the YouTube. I'll be playing this game. I'll be having fun. Again, my late night and chill game. I really appreciate it. So that's pretty much it. Outro out. Much love, friends and family. I'll see you in the next one.